Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home, everybody. ZakIsCinema, I like to think of it as just such a welcoming environment for all those people out there who just try to sit someone down, talk to them about your all-time favorite movie, and then you just slowly realize that their eyes are glossed over and they're drooling a little bit as they struggle to stay awake and pay attention to you as you're trying to talk to them. If that's also you and not just me, please join me, please. You have found the right place. So welcome back to ZakIsCinema. We're very happy to have you here. We're of course doing another movie review today. So let's just jump right into it. Today we're going to be discussing the new Wolfman movie that was released this year in 2025 here. For directors for Wolfman, we have Leigh Whannell. Writers for the movie, we also have Leigh Whannell and Corbett Tuck. Wolfman is also starring Christopher Abbott, Julia Garner, Matilda Firth, and Sam Jagger. The plot for Wolfman follows our character Blake as he relocates to Oregon with his wife Charlotte and daughter Ginger after inheriting his childhood's farmhouse. One night at the farmhouse, the family is attacked by a werewolf. They barricade themselves in the home, but soon Blake begins to transform into something a little bit more sinister. Ooh. A little scary there, Blake. On the channel, we just discussed the original The Wolfman from, I believe, 1941, so you can go ahead and check out that video if you're interested. I was definitely looking forward to this movie. I really like Leigh Whannell and his acting and directing work. You got movies like Saw, the Insidious franchise. I believe he directed Chapter 3 in Insidious, but then as of recently came out a couple years ago with The Invisible Man that I did really enjoy. So I like his acting, I like his writing and directing, so I was excited to see him do another classic monster movie like this, like he did with The Invisible Man. Definitely a big fan of Leigh Whannell. We appreciate him here at ZakIsCinema. We appreciate you, Leigh. I also really enjoy Julia Garner. I really like the show Ozark. Besides the last part of the last season, don't even get me started. The trailer seemed, I was like mixed on the trailers. I think it looked like a really great creature and monster movie. Like they didn't show you much. They didn't reveal too many details about the story. They barely showed anything of the werewolf. So I really enjoyed the trailers and how much of everything in this movie that they really kept hidden. But some of those dialogue scenes in the trailer were just like plain awful. Like some of the writing in the trailer, but the creature stuff seemed really cool. So honestly, I went into this movie having no idea what to expect. I didn't know if I'd love it or hate it or it'd be a mixed bag. So let's jump into the positives for Wolfman, or the things that I personally really enjoyed about this movie. I think the biggest thing that really stood out to me and that I appreciated is that it's a remake that is vastly different from the original. It's a remake here that actually tries to do something different with its story, werewolf lore, characters, and plot. Now, obviously, that has a lot to do with time, technology, how movies are made nowadays, but still, too many times I feel like we get remakes that very much just rehash a lot of what we enjoyed about the original. But this one is very much its own thing. Really, the only thing carried over from the original is the Wolfman. It's a good movie to remake, in my opinion, since the original came out so long ago, so you could do a lot more now with modern technology and effects, directing, and writing. And I think Leigh Whannell definitely showcased that. As you definitely get plenty of werewolf carnage and scenes in this movie. I think unlike the original, which was one of my biggest complaints, is you don't even get it until you're 75% of the way through that movie. But don't worry here, Leigh Whannell, our boys got you covered. You're definitely getting werewolf stuff throughout the movie very consistently. So I really love the creative use of sound design, camera angles, and the color palette whenever we are from the werewolf's POV or from his perspective. You see it in a little bit in the trailer when like he's sitting on the floor and all the lights like go out around him while the characters are still trying to talk to him, see what's wrong with him. So you get scenes like that, like when the characters are talking to our character Blake, it sounds like all muffly and distorted, and I liked how they put you in the like driver's seat and perspective of the werewolf. Like Leigh Whannell with his camera work and direction, he definitely showcases a lot of that here. So I think it also helps to separate this from the original because you get very different perspectives, very different creative uses of our werewolf and what we experience when he's on screen. I couldn't tell if this was just the theater I'm in. I saw it in IMAX, but the sound design in general is something that just made the whole setting and movie feel unnerving. Obviously, he's turning into an animal, so his sense of like hearing is significantly increased. So you get that in the movie too, just with its sound design of the environment around us. Like everything's creaking, sounds a bit off, sounds a bit louder and bigger, and it creates a great sense of the environment and atmosphere too. In this movie, they kind of touched on it in the trailer too. It's treated almost like an infection or like a slowly moving zombie bite, zombie infection. So you get really cool scenes where it's not like one big transformation scene that you get in a lot of werewolf movies. Instead, in this movie, he's kind of almost slowly transforming into the werewolf from scene to scene to scene. It helps to show the spread of the infection, how they treat it like a disease, and you get to see a slower transformation, which I think, again, helps set it apart from the original, does something a little bit new and creative with our werewolf stuff. Leigh Whannell and his team here definitely did great with the practical effects. As you guys know, ZakIsCinema, we love the practical effects. I did not notice any wonky looking CGI or anything, but great use of practical effects, and it definitely earns that R rating. They treat it almost like it's like a grounded werewolf story. You see that through the carnage with its practical effects. I think you get some great tense scenes here that are amplified with the music, acting, and camera work. I also really enjoyed the messages, the themes it was going for. Nothing that like beats you over the head or derails the entire movie, but there's some messages here that are easy to pick up on, but has a lot of themes and messages of like bad parenting, mental illness, abuse, and anger. And I also like how they touched on how impactful those things can be, passing down from generation to generation, and how it sticks and almost infects families as well. I also appreciated how, especially in the beginning, they hide a lot of the werewolf stuff. So you get it immediately, like within its opening scene. They do a good job at slowly revealing it throughout the movie. So it's a lot of covered in shadows, kind of out of focus, a quick shot, and then quick cutaway to our characters. So you don't just get the full thing in the first 5 minutes. That way, if they did that, it would just rip out all the tension of the movie. But they don't do that. Last positive I had here is I think the ending is satisfying and fits its themes. Pretty predictable. Like you can kind of see where it's going, and the movie doesn't try to hide away from that, which I think is fine for a monster movie like that. It wraps everything up for our characters. There's not much more that it needed to be doing, or didn't leave anything just open and a bunch of dangling plot threads or anything like that. Like it wraps everything up. But jumping into my negatives here, I noticed some editing issues, which just kind of threw me off from a director like Leigh Whannell. But there's some editing issues here where I noticed a couple times that characters just kind of jump around the environment and the camera and the scenes aren't lining up properly. For example, they're in this like barn farmhouse setting where there's a house up on a hill, and then a little bit lower there's like a barn and a greenhouse. So a couple times you'll have the characters like screaming and running right outside the farmhouse like front porch, but there's like a long kind of run that they have to do to get down the hill away from the werewolf. A couple scenes you'll have them open the door, get out to the front porch, and then just cut to the very next scene, like a quick jump cut, and they're already there. you had a werewolf chasing them, and then they're just like already there to where they need to be. So a couple like editing things where it just like kind of like threw me off for a little bit. I'm like, did I blink too long? Did I miss them running for their lives here? So I noticed also there was a scene where it's like the middle of the night, and then again, jump cut, very next scene, it's already morning time. So I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was an editing issue or if unfortunately this movie was just chopped up into pieces. So maybe a mix of both, but just some things that I noticed here. I didn't really care all that much about the family. You get a pretty cliche plot here that the wife is working too much, and then you get the dad character, Blake, trying to go on a trip to save his marriage and save his family. And that's like really about it. They don't really give us much else to our characters, nothing that made me want to like latch on to this family, hoping that they can all drive off into the sunset afterwards, which I wasn't expecting a lot of that. I just felt like it was missing something, and I needed something to make me really, really care about this family in this horrific situation, and they just don't provide that. Unfortunately, with like the back half of the movie, you get a lot of that dialogue that we saw in the trailers. The last like hour is a lot of just the family running away from the werewolf, the little girl saying,
Daddy, are we gonna die?
It cuts to the dad like vomiting like fucking blood everywhere. And then mom's like, he's sick, I don't know, I think he's infected.
I think my husband was infected.
And then goes to the next scene, and then he's transforming more like fucking non on his forearm, and then the girl comes in again and she's like,
Daddy,
can you hear me? And the mom's like, I think he's infected, like daddy's not doing too well here. Charlotte,
He got sick.
it's a lot of that. I just noticed myself like kind of starting to drag a little bit even in those back half scenes, just because it's a lot of that repetitive dialogue that we saw in the trailer. So like we were touching on with the family and not too much to care about them, there's really like such a lack of plot in this movie, and it was struggling to keep me engaged. Like I said, workaholic wife, dad's trying to save the family here, takes him onto a trip to some old family property, and that's it. And then you get to the werewolf stuff, and it's them just trying to like run away. The girl's upset, she misses her dad, and she's complaining about it. So there's not like a plot or like a specific mission that they gotta all do together that I want to see them conclude, other than it's just them trying to survive. And I think that would have worked well if maybe they trimmed off about like 15 to 20 minutes, because already in that back half you got a lot of that repetitive nature, unfortunately, with its plot points and its dialogue, and it made me feel the runtime already in somewhat of a short movie. Unfortunately, I think it's around that hour and 50-minute mark. So I think if this was the plot they were going, just throw a family in a horrible situation and watch them run around the property, that's fine. But I think you need to tighten that up significantly more. Like there's easily like 15 to 20 minutes you could chop off that. Just there wasn't enough plot to kind of keep me fully engaged. My last negative here is it's somewhat predictable, played out how I thought it would, and not much to it. Some of those were in my positives because I think it is a satisfying ending. The story wraps up just fine, but you can kind of tell where things are going. Like there's not many other ways they could wrap something like this up, and it does wrap up exactly how you are probably thinking it wraps up, just based off the trailer and the synopsis as well here. So those are some of my negatives. Overall, I think this is a pretty decent creature and monster movie that does separate itself from our original movie. It has great scenes of tension and monster carnage, but unfortunately, it is one of those movies to me that leave your mind as soon as you leave the theater and get into your car and you're struggling to kind of remember what you just experienced here. But I think that's has to do with the lack of plot, the lack of story, and the lack of interesting characters that you unfortunately can't really latch into, or at least I didn't. For my rating, I have it as I'm good with the one-time watch, but I would be okay with rewatching this if I found it again on streaming somewhere. So I think this is a good like streaming movie just to kind of throw on. Like it's a movie I would never never buy to put on my shelf here. Nothing that I'd really look to own again, unfortunately. If you're looking for a little bit more, expected a little bit more from Leigh Whannell, liked his Invisible Man stuff, I would say this is a bit of a step down just on a plot, character, and story level. You have my thoughts here with Wolfman 2025. Let me know down below if you've checked out Wolfman or planning to see it. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you've seen the original. Let me know down below if you have any other creature or monster movies that you want to see get a modern remake. Yes, I appreciate anybody watching my videos. Thank you so much for clicking on the beautiful home of ZakIsCinema, of course. Look out for more reviews and videos coming soon.